So into the next session, so we're back to our rapid fire debates, and I'm sure for those that were in the room yesterday, there were some really compelling debates, and we're definitely in store for more today. So we're going to get stuck into this. We're going to start off with Filippo Filicori and Pietro Valdestri, and we're looking at remotely operated robots, and Filippo's on the side of remotely operated robots, and on the other side is autonomous robots. So we'll hand over to you and get going.
All right, thank you guys. So I'm gonna take over Chris's spot because he was not able to come due to the Canadian airstrike. So I'm gonna, we do have a problem these days. The population is aging, and the pipelines towards developing competent surgeons are not increasing, and therefore we have this mismatch where we don't have really enough competent surgeons to fill the spots to operate on the populations. And there are several ways that we can go about in order to fix this problem. And now Dr. Valdestri here is going to try to convince you that the way to solve this problem is to implement automation and make sure that automations take over certain parts of the surgery and takes over this mismatch of knowledge. But I'm going to convince you by the end of this debate that Dr. Valdestri's claims are a privy of foundation, as much as Elon Musk claims in 2018, where claiming that autonomous car driving, fully autonomous car driving, was going to take place in 6 months. And in order to convince you of that, one of the advantages of running these meetings is that oftentimes I have a lot of people coming to me and showing me their latest projects, and I think this is one of the most interesting robotic automation labs in the world, and it's Axel Krieger's lab at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And basically, this is a project where they used the 200 videos and kinematic data profile from knot tying. And as you will see from this video, the robot still struggles quite a bit in order to tie a knot. And if you can't even tie a knot and tie your shoes, how can you actually start running? On the other hand, telesurgery is actually something that has been proven over and over to be working pretty well. And this is started in 2002 when at IRCAD, Professor Marisco was actually able to do a cholecystectomy in New York using the Zeus system, and this was done with a latency of around 150 milliseconds, and it was done pretty flawlessly. The guidelines of performing telesurgeries are actually out there. I can tell you from my own personal experience that I did about 300 cases, robotic cases last year, and I had to convert to open in 0 instances. And in most times, I would say, except for those situations where I had to gain access to the abdominal cavity and the access was particularly difficult, I was able to do all of my cases with my PA at the bedside and no other assistance. And for those of you who are in Europe, a PA is basically, a skilled assistant that is comparable to a resident. So the guidelines are there. I think case selection for telesurgery is incredibly important, but that mostly, I would say 60% of your cases can actually be executed remotely. And this was actually demonstrated when 2 months ago in Rome, a Chinese company with a Chinese robot was actually able to do a prostatectomy operated from Beijing. And this was done with a latency of about 120 milliseconds, and it was completely feasible. And I'm not going to get into details too much, but this has been proven over and over. A couple of months later, the researchers in China were able to do a colonoscopy thousands of miles away. So I'm not going to take too much of your time. Telesurgery is here and is here to stay. My boss, Dr. Coppa, we have recently handled 5 hospitals between northern New York and southern Connecticut. And we're actually looking right now at telesurgery in order to staff these hospitals and do the complex cases where there's no expertise to do them. And I really truly believe that this is the way to go in order to fill the mismatch between need for surgeries and surgical skills. Thank you.
So I would like to start by saying that it's not really just autonomous versus tele operation. It's more complicated than that. It's not a binary scenario. It's more like 50 shades of gray. And for example, autonomy and computer assistant, we can define multiple levels of autonomy. So from transparent teleoperation, as we are all familiar with current surgical robots, up to robot assistants, task automation, eye autonomy and full autonomy. And so let's define those in a little more detail. And for example, robot assistant, the surgeon provides intention of action and the robot execute. And this is execute and also maybe implement some active constraint to avoid some delicate anatomies, for example. Then task level autonomy, where the surgeon maintains control, but just asks the robot to perform a single task. And I mean, if we want to go with autonomous driving example, there's like self-parking, something like that. Level 3, supervised autonomy, the surgeon select the best plan and hands over control and the robot execute. Of course, at the moment, we see only the level 0, so no autonomy in clinical practice. But I believe that we will go over and over increasing the level of computer assistance. And so, for example, in my presentation in the previous session, I showed you the feasibility, of course, on a cadaveric model of automating some task of a robotic surgical procedure. In the next session, I'll talk about autonomous colonoscopy, a platform we developed for teleoperated, in this case, teleoperated control in this slide. So the doctor has a joystick and basically drive the tip of the flexible endoscope like a car in a video game. But with the same platform, we can also have task automation. For example, we push a button and the system retroflect the tip of the flexible endoscope in the colon, up to self-driving. And so in this case, there is a very simple lumen detection algorithm. The system understands where the lumen is, and we drive autonomously the tip of the endoscope. And so what I'm proposing is that maybe we don't have full automation or automation in robotic surgery in the next years, but probably we will have something along those lines in simpler type of medical procedure like colonoscopy, gastrointestinal endoscopy. And why I think is that possible? Of course, regulatory approval is tough, is extremely tough for autonomous procedures, but how about if we have a robot which is inherently safe? So we have a robot that cannot produce any harm. And for example, the colonoscopy robot I was showing, which I'll describe in detail in the next session, that is inherently safe. So it respects what Ai2m defined in the 3 laws of robotics in 1942. So the first law, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So if we design robots that are inherently safe, maybe we can implement autonomous actions. But of course, the other, beyond regulatory approval, which of course we need, we also need trust. So what is the perception of a robot? Is still like Terminator, or are we moving, as Filippo was mentioning, towards the acceptance of self-driving car, and eventually we will have self-driving flexible endoscope, and as technology improves, maybe self-driving surgical robots. So thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, well, both great discussions, but last mile. How do we get there? Biggest barrier, technical or medical legal, regulatory?
I mean, the medical legal for telesurgery is a big barrier, especially in the United States. I mean, I did some research on how were they actually able to pull off telesurgery in Italy with a surgeon present in China. Well, I mean, one of the ways around it would be potentially like to do an operation from the United States with a patient being here in Italy with a double board certified surgeon, both in the United States and in Italy, like myself, and that might be the theme of next year's meeting. But yes, I mean, definitely a lot of medical legal hurdles around like telesurgery, and I'll let Pietro discuss like the hurdles around autonomous surgery. A lot of technical hurdles, like, I mean, I've never operated with a lag of 120 milliseconds. I don't know how it feels. Maybe we can do some experiments in one of the intuitive hubs, maybe in Connecticut or in Atlanta. We got to get used to have a lag with the robot that it's more than like 10 milliseconds, which is the current lag, I think. And we have to understand whether, you know, what kind of procedure are possible with such a lag.
I think it's also like we need to ask ourselves why we need teleoperation. I mean, can't we fly the same surgeon to the place and perform the surgery there? So I think it may make sense in mentoring. So the surgeon is in place, same room, and there is a super expert surgeon in that specific procedure mentoring, but teleoperating from the other side of the globe, I don't really see the point.
I'm not, you know, probably in Europe we have like more surgeons, you know, compared to the number of patients in need around the territory. But in the United States, we definitely have a mismatch between the need for surgery and the number of surgeons. As I was saying, like, you know, we have to now staff 5 more hospitals in northern Westchester and southern Connecticut, and we just don't have enough surgeons. And, you know, also the other thing is that operating is not very efficient sometimes. When you have turnover times that are around 90 minutes skin to skin, you could be doing so much in those 90 minutes. If I could jump from one console to the other, or like skip like to another case, you know, in another hospital, can you imagine how much more efficiently I would be using my time?
And in that case, it makes sense for automating some tasks. For example, thinking about colonoscopy, you can have, especially for screening for colorectal cancer, you can have an endoscopy, like 5 to 10 endoscopy suite where you have the robot autonomously traveling the colon, supervised by a nurse, and then the gastroenterologist comes in only when needed, when maybe a polyp needs to be resected, and so on. And so in that case, I think automation of simple tasks with a single clinician, surgeon, overseeing multiple procedures at the same time, like from a control center and then going to the specific room when it's needed, that is really cool. And it's more like towards autonomy. Teleoperation, I'm still, yeah, I mean, it may make sense in large countries with large territory to cover. And when you mentioned the Brad Nelson teleoperated gastroscopy procedure, I was there. I was in the room in Hong Kong, at Chinese University of Hong Kong, and the team was teleoperating from Zurich. It to me was like, nice, yeah, you did it, but do we really need to have a gastroenterology in Zurich to do a gastroscopy? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's different needs in Europe and in the United States. I think there's definitely a mismatch with the number of surgeons that we're going to train over the next like 10, 20 years in the United States and an aging population. And so the needs for competent physicians, competent surgeons is going to go up, and we're going to fail to fulfill that need, especially in the underserved areas of the United States, you know, where no one wants to go, and they usually send the foreign medical graduates, like myself, like to do their training or their initial practice to get a green card. Perhaps we don't need to do that. We don't need to send like the Italians to Minnesota, you know. Maybe we can just remotely operate from New York.
I'm going to stop this rant.
I'm still in favor of Italians in Minnesota. Just
running over. Just go on, Eric.
Yeah, I just had one additional comment, and I think it applies to both automation and telesurgery. But one of the things that wasn't brought up was emergent access, and you know, we spend so much time. We're mostly in the elective world in this community right here, but robotics and is going to engage endovascularly a lot, which applies into automation, certainly applies into telesurgery, and in the United States for sure, and I'm sure in multiple places in Europe. You know, if you have a stroke or a heart attack in the wrong location, you need immediate intervention, and we don't have the skill set there, and there's no time to fly anybody there. And we need a combination of automation and telesurgery to intervene quickly, because right now we are generating massive morbidity and mortality by not being able to acutely intervene. And building these platforms, both automation and telesurgery, allow us to get to the point where we can do these emergency interventions, which are going to be a no contest huge advantage for patients.
Great, thanks guys. Great discussion, great debate.